OpenROAD is fully automatic, as Tom said, but sometimes you want to either inspect your result, or occasionally, despite our best automation efforts, we don't achieve the result you want. So you want to be able to inspect your design, understand how you could make it better. So I wanted to show you how to use OpenROAD has a GUI that lets you do those kind of things. If you run the automated flow, this is an example of OpenROAD flow scripts. If you look at the results, what you get is a whole lot of text files or possibly binary files, which are not very easy to debug, right? You read a big def file, you can't really tell what's going on. So OpenROAD-GUI brings up the GUI, same as OpenROAD runs in text mode. This will give you the text mode. -GUI will give you the GUI mode. And there it is. You have a full GUI with a same tickle command prompt you would have if you were in text mode and an output window, but you have additional. So I have a couple of designs loaded. I just wanted to show you sort of what it looks like. So here I've loaded up a design. It's been placed, and I've run global routing. So we can see in this design, there's a set of macros, these kind of little black boxes around the corners, and a bunch of logic in the middle. We zoom in, these are all gates. So placed throughout the design. So immediately you can see what your design looks like in a way that you can't from a def file or a GDS file. That's in global routing. The main objective is to reduce congestion for routing. So we have this congestion map display. It's a fairly standard display you see in most commercial EDA tools. And it shows you the density of wires after global routing. Where are you using a lot of routing resource and where are you using less? So we can see the areas where there are not many cells is blue. This is fairly low density. Here, the yellow region is a higher density region showing moderate usage. And here where we have these macros, we can see in red, we have very high density usage. So that tells you immediately most of my routing challenge is getting into my macros. Right? Those macros are dense, the routing around them is dense. And that's really the kind of understanding you can get from looking at the tool itself. So that might suggest if you had trouble with routing, you could spread your macros out, you could use bigger halos or channels. Those kind of user level settings would exist to let you examine it. It's a live GUI, so you can zoom in, you can look at the details much more closely. There's a congestion setup, which lets you set the range of congestion you're looking at. I'm looking at from 50% to 100% congestion. If you wanted to see more specifically, you could kind of zoom in and change the ranges, get a more detailed view of exactly where are the highest points of congestion, like here in the middle of this channel. So this particular design is routable, but I just wanted to kind of give you the understanding of you can look at the global routing results and you can understand them in a lot more detail through the congestion map. You can also, as I said, it's a fully live GUI, so you have just your tickle prompt here. You can do any normal tickle command. That's how I ran the global routers. I just ran global route. These are dockable windows, so you can undock them, and you can see your standard text mode output as well. So in this case, you can see that the router was running various iterations, trying to resolve congestion, and eventually it succeeded in reaching zero overflow. That gives you a sense of what you can do in terms of debugging issues in global routing or congestion in routing. There are similar GUIs elsewhere. I wanted to show you a second look at a fully routed design. So this is a different design, fully routed. These are both on Skywater. This is the IBEX design, which is a small RISC-V core. And it's been fully routed. So you can see all the routing layers. It's fully live. You can zoom in and see in full detail what's going on. Of course, EDA layout's very dense, so you need control over what you're seeing. And that's what the display controls here on the left are. You can turn off the layers and see just an individual layer. You can see these are all of your standard cells where they've been placed with their pins. Again, you have full kind of control over individual layers. If we select an item, there is an inspector over here. Make it a little bigger. It gives you information about the object you've selected. And in this case, it's an instance and its name and what type of cell it is. And you can also highlight the individual pins as you mouse over them. And the blue are links, just as they would be in your browser. You can follow the link to the D pin and to the net that it's connected to. So this gives you the ability to sort of walk through your net list. There's a fit button that shows you this guy is driving up to here. And so it lets you investigate your design. This is sort of at the level of just manually tracing through the design. We have tools to help you kind of go a little deeper, more automatically. For example, there's a timing button here. We'll bring up a timing window. You can choose a number of paths, and you can choose the path. Let's bring it back so we can see. And you can examine a timing path in detail. For example, here starts a clock, and it goes through the network. It highlights the screen as it goes where the guys are. You can see, in this case, we've had repeaters inserted by the resizer as well as buffering inserted. This is for a long connection where it's too long to be driven by a single gate. And this gives you as well your time for each segment and the direction of transition. So this is very much equivalent to if you ran report checks in the text mode version, but here it's also annotated onto the layout. So you can actually get a visual sense of what's going on. You can do both setup paths and you can also do hold paths. The process is quite similar. It gives you a path. Here you can see hold buffers being inserted into the path. Actually, quite a few hold buffers on this path. So this, as well as this is a data path, you can also see the capture clock. This is a path to the register at the end of the path, whereas this clock path is a clock path to the register at the beginning of the path. You can choose to expand the clock network and see each of the individual delays put in by CTS. This gives you the ability to kind of go in and zoom in on your design and see what's happening. The other kind of useful things you can do with the display controls, you can control what's displayed by type. So for example, if I turn back on all the routing, I can turn off the signal nets, power and ground, leave behind just clock nets, and there's my clock tree. So I can quickly see my clock tree. In addition, we have a find option, which I'll show you a kind of a useful trick. You can find instances by name like clock star. And if we select all those are all my clock buffers. We name them consistently, so that will find every clock buffer in the design, along with your clock nets. It's a pretty easy way to get a picture of your clock tree. Tom showed you in the slides. This is kind of how you can do it graphically. If you do it pre-routing, you'll see it looks a little bit more like star topologies because this is a post-routed version. So this is the kind of inspection you can do. Again, even if you turn off the visibility, you can still see the selection of where are all the clock buffers and how are they distributed through the layout. The other thing I wanted to tell you about is in OpenROAD, when the tool starts up, it will read in your home directory a .openroad file, as many tools do. You can create your own buttons. So this create toolbar button, you can see this PG is this button here. These three buttons are actually not part of normal OpenROAD. I created them myself. You can create your own buttons for any commonly carried out action. Give it a name, and a script is just a tickle script, a set of commands to run. So here I'm using the commands that let me turn on and off visibility. So for example, I get power and ground's current visibility, and then I set it to the opposite, which lets me toggle on and off power and ground. So if I'm looking at the whole design, I often don't want to see power and ground. I can just toggle them on and off. Likewise with instances, I may not want to see the fillers. I can have a command or a button to do that. So you can create your own customized usage models. It can be any script you want. I mean, these are kind of graphical scripts, but you could have a button that says do global routing. So all of those are available to fully customize the GUI. So this is kind of the general high level. If we zoom in and we look at this, there are also detailed options like there is a ruler where you can measure distances between objects. Pretty helpful if you're looking at DRC violations. You say, are these objects too close? What's the rule? You can kind of measure objects. So it's the K hotkey, and it has object snapping. So it will attempt to snap to the edges of objects. You can turn that off if needed. So it's pretty helpful. The timing GUI and the congestion GUI are probably the most powerful for debugging, as well as just simply being able to trace the layout and look at the patterns directly. I'm glad to give more time to any demo someone wants to see on any particular features, but this is the high level.